It's the OCGFAM show. Today we're talking about alkalinity. It's a hot topic. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? How you doing? Let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it after the show. Right now, let's just get into the show. So, we've been talking a little bit, Scott and I have mentioned in the last couple of viewer questions videos, some, I guess you might call them breakthroughs that he's found through working with a pig farmer in alkalinity and, of your water and how that affects your grow. It can affect it pretty significantly from what we're seeing, and people have been asking, what's the deal? Let us know the information. And they're still kind of working this out over at OCG as to getting you the equipment you're going to need to fix this alkalinity. It's not a complicated process, but they just got to get all their ducks in a row. But Scott and I talked about this on the last viewer questions episode. Probably a lot of you saw that, but it was clear at the end of the episode, so I thought it'd be good to take that little chunk of it and put it into a little piece that you can watch here. So watch the clip. Very interesting. I'll talk to you after.
We finally got the Hanameters in.
Nice.
So now you can actually order these online.
Oh yeah.
OCG. You can also order them from Hana. You can order them from Amazon. You can go support Bezos. You know, who doesn't give any money to your kid's baseball team?
No, no, he doesn't.
Probably
He's not a kid's baseball team guy.
No, not really at all.
He
So
does build
regardless,
rockets,
huh?
He's building some rockets though.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Who was it that said we're gonna build rockets and go to space? And Elon says, "Go for it, pussy." Did you see his tweet?
No, that's awesome.
No, he says, "Do it, pussy." Stop talking about it. Just do it.
That's that Facebook movie. It's like, you didn't invent Facebook, because if you'd invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook.
That's it. Well, this little unit here.
Yeah.
This is the one I asked people to buy. It's not focusing if I put my head behind it. No. Anyway, it's the PPM one, not the UKD one or the... Because they'll sell this in the same thing 3 different ways for saltwater tanks, freshwater tanks, and drinking water.
Oh.
All of them can be moved over.
Because,
so
I gotcha.
Yeah, there's a conversion chart. We can figure it out. I've had a lot of customers, I send them this link, they still buy the other one.
It's like the dechlorinator for your fish tank is different from the dechlorinator for your drinking water. It's a different, kind of same thing. I gotcha.
So this, so far, is super easy to take a test. It's super consistent.
What do you, slurry, or what do you do?
You basically, you put 10 mils of water in, you measure what's in that water, then you take this out, you put 1 mil of reagent in, that goes in, reacts, you put it back in, you press it again, and it tells you how many parts per million of alkalinity is in this water.
And this is your straight water before you do anything. This is your water. Not your soil water, but
this is Portland water that we tested for a farm. They came down, this came out to 33 parts per million. And they were struggling with their soil slowly becoming acidic during the late veg and early bloom stage, very similar to our farm up there that we were talking to. So they brought their water down. What we found, we got them a calcite charger. They found one locally at a fish store or drinking water store. We put calcium limestone in line. We run their water over it. It increased theirs up to 55. And there's a reason for that. Their starting water is at 7.2 pH. So for calcite to release itself, it has to be below neutral, more acidic than neutral. So if their water is at like 6.5, it would drop more alkalinity out of the calcite in the charger because it's reacting, and it's basically the acids are dissolving the calcium off the rock and building it into the water.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when I look at my pH chart, I've got acid and alkaline. Is this, but there's like a pH, but is this like, I've got 100 of these things that are real high pH, or I've got 1,000 of these things that are a little lower, and I'm getting the same pH level, but this is different. Is that kind of what it is?
Well,
I don't understand.
pH is the potential of hydrogen, which is the acids in your system.
Sure.
Alkalinity is the level of calcium carbonate in your water or your soil. It doesn't mean it's pH related. It's literally insoluble forms of calcium carbonate.
pH or acid and alkaline are not yin and yang. They're 2 different things.
Well, 7 is neutral.
Yeah.
7.1 is alkaline and 6.9 is acid by definition.
Yeah.
So if you just run 7 over calcite, it's going to draw up a little just to build your naked water up.
Right.
But it can only hold so much before the potential of hydrogen says, no, we can't take any more on. So if you lower the pH of your water to become more acidic, then the alkalinity is like, hey, we can fix that. So it starts drawing the alkalinity off of the limestone carbonate, building back your water alkalinity, and in turn gently rising your pH. What happens with a lot of these folks that are running rainwater, reverse osmosis, distilled, evaporative, any type of water that's not just tap well or naturally occurring, minus rain, which is naturally occurring,
Sure.
but that's evaporative, so there's
Yeah.
nothing in it, zero alkalinity.
Yeah, it's like distilled water to
It
some
is,
extent,
very
except
much.
whatever falls through the...
Yep, the
it
only
falls
difference is evaporated versus forced distilled.
Yeah.
So as that water passes over potting soils like ours, that builds in a ton of calcium carbonate, tons of oyster shell, tons of limestone, all of these calcium forms in our potting soil. Well, if you can reduce the alkalinity of our potting soil with water, that means your water has zero alkalinity, and it's drawing the alkalinity out just like if this cartridge is filled with limestone and we take that same water, it draws the alkalinity out of the rock, builds the water, and then it replenishes the soil with alkalinity by releasing it back into the plant's root zone. So what we noticed right out of the gate is going from a 30 to even a 55 for these guys. They're like everything immediately turned around, started greening up, started perking up, started praying again. The rigidity of the plant was there, the vigor of the plant was there, and that was with a 20-point increase. Pig went from 7 to 80, and his yield went from 1 to 3, and it was that quick.
So, like, when they're talking about the alkaline water that we drink to make us healthier, it's not about the pH exactly. They're off base to some extent, perhaps.
Well,
just
but
making the pH is just...
Yeah, I mean, anybody can Google alkalinity versus pH, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly the difference of them. They are not the same thing. Although sometimes they become relative to each other, they are not parallel. So if you go to 9.0 pH, that doesn't mean you have 300 parts per million of alkalinity. You could still have 20. That pH could be caused by a hydroxide. It could be caused by a different element or a different mineral that's causing these issues, which could become more problematic because we're looking for... The whole thing about building soils is you want to create these higher cation exchange capacities in the soil. If you have no alkalinity, that's the energy. I mean, imagine calcium is just being a battery. And if the batteries are all equally placed within the soil and you start to charge that thing, it can take up everything you're giving it because that energy is being focused in the root zone. But if you take the batteries out or the batteries die, because you stripped all the lithium out of them, the soil just becomes dead. And nothing can work. The CEC drops to nothing. Everything you're feeding them just starts building up because the plants aren't absorbing it anymore. So all of a sudden the pH drops, the ppm start going up, and then everything goes to hell fast because you can't possibly feed them because the potential or the pH is so darn low. Does that make sense? Kinda.
It really, I mean, it's like overwhelming, like, no, I don't get it, but also it makes sense. You know, you're like, it's like, okay, that makes...
Well, I think next week, Tuesday, you post the pig video with him talking about it and showing what that is, showing those filters. We should have those filters up by next week online to show you what you need. And then really, your first goal, I mean, I've got guys now testing all their water. I got guys in Colorado that their well comes out at 220 parts per million, and the water they get from the city's 5. So they're blending them. So they're getting to 101 parts per million, and they're getting the best of both worlds. And all immediate turnaround in the plant. Now, when he was just using his well at 220, everything was going the other way. His soil pH by mid-bloom was at like 7.6, 7.7, and it was because it was so much extra alkalinity in the water, it was dumping it into the soil, because the soil was less alkaline than the water, so it was stealing it back.
So when he's hammering away with pH, I gotta fix, not knowing what's going... You know, it's like, you know, they say when you hear a good song, you think you've heard it before. It's like that. When you explain this to me, it's like, I don't understand exactly, but it makes sense.
And it's starting to really... Like, because we've always been pH critical, pH. Even today on my live show with Green Grow is just... So, you're pH critical, and it's like, you know, that's what we've said forever, but the downfall is it's alkalinity. I mean, pH is critical. We feed at this range because that's where calcium is going to be most available. If your soil's screwed up,
you're never going to
get doomed. There. You're never. It doesn't matter what you pH.
You may think you're there, but you're not.
No, because the soil's going to steal everything you added to create the higher pH is with a limestone. So as soon as it hits the soil wants to fix itself, so it steals the alkalinity, and it's trying to balance that in the soil, and it doesn't have enough to rebuild that soil back up. It just comes down to your water source is going to be your key to your success. If you just have crappy alkalinity free and you don't want to buy a $150 charger to add calcium back into your water, synthetics don't need any of this.
Yeah.
They can run on NP and K. Alkalinity isn't a thing. We're force feeding them those salt minerals, and they can handle that just fine. If you're living soil, you're no-till, you're totally organic, you're outdoor and just meals, soil alkalinity and water alkalinity far more important than pH. So this $50 test is well, you could go to Pigs and say, how much is that worth to you? And he's like, well, I put $250 worth of an investment into 9 rooms and I tripled my yield. So $300 turned around really, really fast. So it just depends on what it's worth to you. But everybody we've turned this on to either reducing their alkalinity or increasing it within, I think the longest now has been 72 hours of, holy, look at the difference. But most people are within the 12 to 14 hours of the next day just going,
damn.
Whoa, all we did was just put this water through rocks and look at the difference.
Yeah.
So alkalinity, we're going to keep working this. We're going to get more and more info. This is not going to be something... This is going to change how Nectar looks at a lot of things down the road. And a lot of farms we're dealing with, like one of the things we're dealing with now is we just ordered a bunch of different forms of calcite. We're trying to figure out how can we just put them in pantyhose and suspend them in 55-gallon drums and do it that way versus buying
some kind of
$200 units and this and that. So we're coming up with different ways that we can, this isn't all just, hey, go here and buy this and do that. We just want to educate you guys so that when you're buying nectar, you have nothing but success because you understand how important your water is. We make everything with rainwater, and that's a blank slate, which is great. That's what we want. But now I'm finding out that rainwater isn't great for indoor gardening. And people are like, well, I water my vegetable gardens with rainwater. And it's like, well, yeah, but your vegetable garden also has, the planet below it. So it has a mineral load and an alkalinity load of like 72 tons of earth directly below the root zone. So
and it's been growing stuff for hundreds of thousands of years.
You know how many things have risen and fallen on that square footage in the history of time?
Yeah.
You have calcium. Like if you do a soil lab test here in the valley, the calcium load is through the roof. None of it's available. But that just means that when you're watering with rainwater, you're not stripping the alkalinity out because it's already built into the soil. If you're buying potting soil with no alkalinity in it, and you're using a reverse osmosis with no alkalinity in it, you better be feeding synthetically because there is no way you're going to have a good, healthy, strong crop.
So, are dry amendments valuable to your soil even if they're not available to your plant?
Yeah, because they're available to the microbes, and the microbes, if you're feeding them, then they populate and they work it all through.
I gotcha.
And
but not to this then.
No, but even then, compost has calcium in it. Kelp has calcium. As it's breaking down, it builds calcium as it's decaying. So, there'd still be big benefits of having feather meal, and chitin has calcium in it. So, there's a lot of different. Having the meals in there, even for the no-till guys, alkalinity is going to be huge. And that's where CowPro comes in. That Pro calcium, that's pure alkalinity being built back in. So if you're doing a super soil, they mostly will put in dolomitic lime or gypsum or something, which is high sulfur and high magnesium, which to us, it's like, don't use those because it's way too much of both.
Yeah.
But that's what they'll build in for their alkalinity and their pH adjusting are gypsum and dolomite. And we're like, no, just use carbonate. Because calcium carbonate isn't going to give you an excess of sulfur, excess of magnesium. Instead, it's just going to balance your alkalinity, and everything you feed and water into there just becomes more available. Now, the trick is, if you can get this to about 80 to 100 parts per million, be prepared to have to feed. Not want to feed, you have to feed more because now the pathways are wide open.
Cooking with gas now.
Well, that's where we looked at notes from 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and then just recently with Pig. And he's like, see, back here, I was tripling Gaia, tripling Medusa, tripling Athenas in the first 3 weeks of flowering. This year, I'm at half strength everything because everything's not taking any of it in. And we're pulling her hair out. Like, what changed? What's the difference? We're testing soils. We're looking at the pH of everything. His water. And everything came back to it. See, right here's when you went from well to rain. And look, from here on, it just goes downhill. And so if you're using rainwater or RO or distilled, we need to talk. We need to get you on one of these, and then we can help fix getting you into... Now, if you're in Michigan, just get one of these for fun because it's fun to see what you have, but you'll probably never need a calcite charger because you're probably at 100 to 120. And then the other thing we're finding is like with him, he had 7 or 8 chargers in a row, hoping that everyone was going to give him a parts per million.
Oh, like he was going to double bubble the situation.
And, and the first 2 definitely made a big difference because it's about the amount. What happens is, if the water flies across the rocks, it doesn't have enough time there to pull anything off the surface area, so your parts per million will be less. The slower it's on that surface area, the more it's going to release. So what he learned is with 2 chambers, he can dial down his water outtake, slowly draw it across there, and get up to 80 to 90 parts per million just by slowing his flow.
Does he just go into a cistern or something? And
300-gallon shuttle, and then he transfers them into mini shuttles. Now, I have a customer up in kind of Vancouver, Portland area on the other side of Portland, and their water is 7.3. So at 33 parts per million to start with that water, they can get up to that 55. Now they're going to have to go back and cycle it through again at a slow rate to see if they can add more. Or as I told them, just throw some Guy or Hades in there. Get your pH at like 6.5. Then run it through the system, and that'll bring out way more alkalinity because you're slowly dissolving the rock.
You're giving it the potential to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I sent them this picture, which I'll just quickly.
Is that the pH? That's the pH of the acid, and the acid's breaking down the calcium more effectively. And
to break down limestone, you need an acid.
Yeah.
And so if you have this acid going in there, acid 6.8 is an acid by definition. So if you have a little bit of acidic water going across it, it dissolves more limestone in there to buffer it, and then you get your alkalinity built in. And so on his thing, let me see if I can find his quick farm pick. So this is, do I have one with just all of them? Thought I did. Anyway, but these are the first 2, and see how little. This is over 5,000 gallons, and he has 5 more in line right here.
Floating on top there, what?
Let's do 2, and then we add.
So see, that's full, that's full, that's full, that's empty, that's empty.
Yeah.
Emptied. They're all running through, and he goes, basically.
These are just like those filter canisters you see, like for a pool or something. You'll see 2 little things that are full of.
Or your RO units will have them for a sediment filter or whatever.
And there's just limestone in there.
Just calcite,
Okay. Yeah.
And so what he did was. That's what we're talking about right there. But on these first 2, those are the only ones that have any reduction of the calcite in there, even though they come in this way and then go through all of them and then into his tank, because they already met their highest potential through the first 2.
Oh, sure.
So they need nothing out of these other 3. So he's like, well, this was a waste of my time. I just thought that everyone I added would give me 40.
Sure.
But then he went 40, 80, and then he slowed the flow down, so now he's like 50, 100.
So you just it gets harder and harder as you get closer and closer to 100.
You can't really over alkaline your water just by passing it over. You'd have to have a chemical reaction or a seismic heat situation like a volcano to create that type of energy to release that type of alkalinity into the water. But so what we're teaching people now, if you have 0, then you're probably going to need 2 canisters right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Like RO, rainwater, you're going to probably need 2. If you already have decent water or somewhat decent water, most likely 1 with a slow flow is going to get you a noticeable result, and then it's up to you on whether or not you want to do another one.
And if it gets to some point where you got to really push hard, then you have to do some sort of pre-treatment with like an acid or something to get it.
Yeah, you'd want to drop your pH enough to get more into the water.
But you'd still only have like 2 canisters? You would just
looking at what he's doing, I don't see the need for more. No. It seemed like that was a giant waste of money if nothing's happening. He's like, man, I'm just going to let these go or take all that material out, put them in here, and sell these to my friends because he's not getting more by putting more in line. His pH has hit a potential that is going to
where it's going,
and then the alkalinity gets to its echelon. So, alkaline, just stay tuned.
Yeah. We're
going to post a video of that interview because that was where this all started for us. And then we're just going to keep playing. We have all the materials either on their way or in stock. OCGFAM is going to be putting up these kits with the meters, the canisters. Yeah, we're just getting in the calcite now, so we're going to start playing with that stuff and then put them all online. So look for new kits in the next weeks to come. But it could be a huge game changer, even for the small tent guide. and this is for everything. I mean, this is your vegetables. If you've had a brown thumb, it's because your water. That's what's probably happening.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at your water collectively, and we'll see what we can all come together and make a better garden for all. But this will be a big thing. I'm excited for it. I'm like giddy every time I test somebody's water. I'm just like, you need some chargers. Stupid, but we've come to the end of the road, but now we're taking a new turn, and it's going to get interesting. Tripling your yield in the first run is just
crazy.
And from a guy who already
killing it,
he's got a bragging rights to a lot of different genetics. Now he's going to make it. I mean, he's going to ruin a lot of people's day. But it's turning these little guys into. I mean, out of those farms, there's Big Beard Farms, High Places. These guys, they know about this, but they're not telling anybody about it, and they're turning the corner to bigger yields and better quality and this and that because they're starting to put these calcite chargers in line because of what Pig's teaching them. So that Pig, man, I'll tell you,
he's something else. He
is. He's just a non-greedy asshole.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Good soul.
He really is. We know good people.
Yeah. I remember the first time I met him, I was up at Indo Expo, and you meet everyone there, and you're like, hey! And I met him, and he just how you doing? You're Bob, right? I'm like, yeah, Pig. Oh my God! It was just very low key, and I was like, that's who I remember out of all the. Except
he's
for that.
Humble. He's chill.
Yeah,
he just no ego. Well, his ego comes from a whole different place, and it's not growing.
He's okay. Yeah, he's okay with him.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm gonna be okay, and so I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
No, exactly, and he's not an ego grower. So, like you said, he's not out there. Mine's better than yours.
Yeah.
He's into teaching others, and he's definitely one of those nectar heads that just, if you're not successful with nectar, then you're doing it wrong, is the philosophy. And it's not that you're all doing it wrong, it's just, we all aren't handed the same exact tools, and that's what it boils down to, is what's in our toolbox, and if we can all have the same tools, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
But we're not. I'm in Oregon, you're in Michigan, you're in Illinois, you're in Florida. There is a different water table for neighborhoods, let alone for states. So stay tuned on this. If you're so inclined to find out why your grow sucks, except for in Michigan, don't bother buying these. Michigan just wanted to know. But, these meters, get the ppm meter if you're going to be communicating with me. It's just a marine checker.
Okay.
The code number of this one is the HI755. Comes complete with 2 vials, some syringes, your reagent. It's super easy to use, no calibration needed, so it's not even as difficult as a pH pen.
Nice. And you don't have to do any special cleaning for the next batch. You just
rinse it really good and go out from there. And what I have been doing, and that's where alkalinity and pH. So all these different waters I've been testing for people, the pHs are all over the place and the alkalinities are all over the place, and none of them
doesn't correlate.
No, you can't go, well, if your alkalinity is 62 parts per million, your pH is going to be somewhere in the 8 to 8.3. No, I mean, I've seen 6.9 with 140 parts per million of alkalinity, where I've seen that same 120 with a pH of 8.99091. It's like, oh my gosh. So don't tell me that your pH is this, what's my alkalinity, or my alkalinity is this, what's my pH. You kind of you don't need this meter, but this is your next cheap.
Yeah.
Or go in on it with 4 friends. I mean, it really is for $12.50 to change that much of your world, it's worth every penny.
Still crucial, your pH after you've done this.
pH is still about how the plant absorbs the nutrition. Alkalinity is the CEC in the soil making that energy happen for the plant to even want to take in the potential of hydrogen. So it's the pH of the food is still very important. But if you have 0 alkalinity, then it's not driving in nearly as much.
It's like the smart kid at the school where nobody cares and he's bored. And they think he's a bad student.
Yeah,
he's
they put him on Ritalin because he's sitting there twiddling his thumb and throwing boogers at the next kid. Yeah, this is the booger kid.
All right.
Okay, what do you think of that? I thought that was pretty interesting, but it's just kind of an appetite whetter for a better video coming. More extensive video with Pig Farmer himself that's coming up next week sometime. They wanted to get everything together over at OCG before we put that one up that actually talks about the mechanics of how you do it, so that they'd be ready to help you to facilitate that process. So that's the show for today. Love you. I'll see you tomorrow. The OCG Fam Show was pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow.